Have you ever wondered what inner work with internal family systems looks like with troubling sexual issues? What is it like when a man has the courage and the trust to lean into his sexual issues and engage them more fully? I am bringing you an example of this today. Drew Boa and I recently did a live workshop for Christian mental health professionals in which we reviewed our unburdening of 3 of his parts from a major sexual issue. We stopped the video at some points to discuss the process of the demonstration in real time with those Christian therapists. And then Drew gave us the gift of his willingness and his openness to share his experience, to share his history with a much broader audience, to share it with you, to share it with all the listeners of our Interior Integration for Catholics podcast. I'm Dr. Peter Malinowski, also known as Dr. Peter, clinical psychologist, trauma therapist, podcaster, blogger, co-founder and president of Souls and Hearts, but most of all, I am a beloved little son of God, a passionate Catholic who wants to help you to taste and see the height and depth and breadth and warmth and light of the love of God, especially God the Father and Mary, our mother, our spiritual parents, our primary parents. I'm here to help you embrace your identity as a beloved little child of God and Mary. That is what this podcast is all about. That is what Souls and Hearts is all about. This is the first time I've done a video version of the Interior Integration for Catholics podcast. And without further ado, I bring you Drew Boa and his demonstration. Okay, so I am feeling really blessed and really excited at the same time because with us today, I'm just so pleased, is Drew Boa. And Drew has given us all an amazing gift. He's given us the gift of himself. He's given us the gift of a demo where he does some amazing, beautiful work. He, as his innermost self, with his parts. And Drew was willing to share that video of the way he connected with his parts with the world. He is the host of the Husband Material podcast, which is all about helping men outgrow pornography. It's an amazing podcast. He does some really beautiful work. He brings in some of the best guests. I highly recommend it. And he also runs the website husbandmaterial.com and has a community where men are working together to overcome pornography addictions. He's a coach. He is experienced with IFS, with internal family systems. And Drew, I just really want to welcome you to this experience today.
Thanks, Peter.
And what we've decided to do is to go through that whole experience, the one we recorded on the March 6th, 2023 episode of Husband Material, and invite Christian therapists to come together to have a conversation. Drew and I will break it down. We'll stop at various points to describe what's happening with our parts, kind of share what was like the inside story, what you might not have seen, right on the surface all the time, to share some of that. And then also to just open up some conversation, to see some reactions of folks that are watching this. And as we begin, I just want to let you know that some of your parts are likely to resonate with what happens in this. It's really common for parts to resonate, so I'm going to invite you to take in what's helpful and to feel free to disconnect if it feels like it's too intense or if it's bringing up something that's strong in you. This wasn't therapy because this is a demonstration. And those of us that do IFS work, we frequently will learn from demonstrations, we'll teach by demonstrations. But even though it wasn't therapy, the material is real. This is not role play. This is not, some sort of play acting or something like that. And so I'm going to invite you into the role of an observer. And what that means is not so much observing what's going on between Drew and me, but to observe what's going on within your own system. Because as your own parts are sensing what's happening in this experience, it's going to bring up stuff for many of us. Parts are going to be able to resonate, and there may be some really important things that they want you to know. So just to be aware, to take some time to observe what's happening within your own system. And we'll stop at various points. The first clip is about 10 minutes long, for example, and we'll stop at various points to have some conversation and so forth. So Drew, I just wanted to open it up to anything that you might want to add or anything that you might want to share before we get started with this.
I will share that this seems unique because it engages with the topic of sexuality very directly, and sexual fantasies, sexual fetishes, attractions. And that's something that I haven't seen very much in IFS literature. And yet it's so important, and it's a big part of this healing journey.
All right. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll roll about the first 10 minutes of the tape.
Hey man, today's episode was extremely vulnerable for me and also extremely powerful. It was the very first episode I ever recorded where I am actually receiving some guidance in my own healing journey on the episode. So I hope it's helpful for you all. We will specifically be working through one of my sexual parts, a part of me that is sexually aroused by braces and specifically headgear. That is the part that I specifically wanted to work with going into this session. My fascination and obsession with orthodontics is something that has been the focus for my specific struggle with pornography, masturbation, sexual fantasy. And so in this session, you are going to get a glimpse of what it's like to actually learn where that kind of stuff might come from. It will give you a chance to see what it's like to give and receive love, to actually experience healing in these parts of us. I want to remind everyone that the goal is not to remove any of our parts. The goal is not to change our sexuality. The goal is listening, learning, and loving with the power of God in us and between us. So it's a very sacred experience that I've had. I present it to you in the hope that it will encourage you and maybe give you some new insights or imagination for what healing could look like for you and your specific sexual parts. Enjoy the episode. So today is a very vulnerable moment for me where we are going to do an experiential exercise with one of my sexual parts. Sexuality is often misunderstood, and we often either just indulge or attack the sexual thoughts and feelings that we wish we didn't have, which really prevents us from giving and receiving love and from integration, from living with whole hearts and being able to outgrow old behaviors that we don't need anymore. So today, Peter and I are here showing up, ready for whatever God might want to do. I feel the need to let everyone know that there's just so much hostility in conversations surrounding sexuality in our wider culture. Conversations about what is acceptable, what is not, what is biblical and what is not. And what I'm hoping to show here and what I'm hoping to experience is that many of our sexual attractions and fantasies really have non-sexual needs and underpinnings. And when we can address those, wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming here today with a part of me that I've only revealed to just a few people. And so I'm being present to the fact that it feels very vulnerable. And so I am taking a redemptive risk by showing up and doing some work with this specific, beautiful, wonderful, and wounded part.
And as we start, Drew, I'm going to invite you to see if there's any objections or concerns about what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to remind parts too that just because we've started this exercise or we're filming it doesn't mean that everything has to be revealed. It doesn't mean that the tape ever has to be played. It doesn't mean at all that anyone has to know about any of this. I'm perfectly fine with walking it all back, totally, taking this out if we get into something that parts are like, nope, that's not good. That's not to share. Okay. So we got to start with safety here. And we got to start with a sense of felt protection. And I really want to honor your protectors about how they're doing and check in with them just to see if we've got any concerns.
Well, hearing you say that definitely boosts my sense of safety, helps my stomach to relax. And I do have one part coming up that is concerned about my appearance.
Yeah. And does that make sense to you, Drew, in your innermost self? Can you resonate with that concern? Okay.
Yeah. Because part of the issue here is my sense of anxiety about my physical appearance.
Okay.
And also knowing that people will see me and see this side of who I am, and they might not like what they see.
Yeah. Can that part of you that's got that concern, can that part see you, Drew?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to invite that part to look at you. And I'm going to invite you to look at that part. Okay, something's going on. Something's happening inside.
This part of me is like a makeup artist.
Okay. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. It makes so much sense, huh? Yeah.
And it spends a lot of time in front of the mirror. And it is telling me that it's learning to like me and what I look like.
Yeah. Well, let's try this, Drew. I'm just going to invite you to let that part know that if it feels like it has to put a mask on, it can do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to stop that.
Yeah.
There's other ways that we can work if that part's interested, but we're not trying to strip away anything that it knows.
Yeah. Makeup artist, you are allowed to put a mask on me.
Yep.
If and when you feel the need.
Yep.
I'm glad you're here. You have helped me. Thank you.
Yes.
And also, I really appreciate the time earlier this year when we decided to take off the Zoom filter that enhances my appearance. That was a mask that you and I chose to take off. And at first it felt exposed and different, and now it just feels normal. And I want to say thank you. That's been such a healing step for me.
I'm just going to invite you to notice, Drew, if that part's able to take it in. That part's able to take in what you've just offered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It does say that I probably would look a little better with the Zoom filter on sometimes. And it's right here when needed.
Yeah.
So we have permission to move forward.
Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. And I'm just going to invite you to notice if there's anything up in your body, Drew, that anything that you're noticing, any trailhead about other concerns from other parts.
There's also the manager who meticulously edits these videos and podcasts every week that has a temptation to want to go in and pick and prune all the little parts of this that I might want to smooth out, and work with my video editor to make it a great experience for listeners. But that's not what this is about today. And I do sense like we have permission to go forward with that as well.
Well, my collaborator part really resonates with that because that's the part of me that edits my stuff. So totally like stinking up right here. Totally get it.
Oh man.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and though, those decisions can all be made, together in post-production, Yeah. So, I mean, there's reasonable courses of action all over the place with that afterwards. So,
yeah, my system is saying we're ready to go.
Okay. So that was kind of the opening, right? So here in this, we are sort of setting the stage to do some work. And the thing I really wanted to just draw some attention to is the importance of safety, the importance of a felt sense of safety and protection. It can't just be actual safety and actual protection. It's got to be felt. It's got to be sensed, and not just by one part or two parts or three parts, but we'd like that sense of safety to extend to all the parts that are present in the moment. And so that's kind of what I was just sort of curious if you could share with us a little bit. I know that I was really hoping to be able in those moments to connect with you, Drew, just around that sense of safety.
Yeah. Watching that video, part of me feels a little impatient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can't we just get on with the work? Can't we just do this thing that we came here to do?
Mm-hmm.
And yet in the end, I really appreciated it. Like it was very safe.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it felt redundant, even if it was like going over this again, oh, there's another part coming up and another part.
Yeah. Well, Brown and Elliott, in their 2016 book, Attachment Disturbances in Adults, talk about how that first primary condition of secure attachment is a felt sense of safety and protection. And so this is where we really need to start. And if we overdo it a little bit, that's better than underdoing it a little bit. George MacDonald, he said, few delights can equal the mere presence of one whom we trust utterly. So this importance of trust, this importance of being able to be connected with, right? Parts are like little children. They need the presence of someone that they can trust. And one of the ways that Richard Schwartz characterizes internal family systems is as attachment theory taken inside. where the innermost self can be the secure attachment figure for the parts. And in beginning to work with you, Drew, I really wanted my innermost self to be able to be like an auxiliary attachment figure, somebody that your parts could trust, as far as being able to have a sense of safety, to sense that there isn't an agenda, that would be harmful to any of your parts.
And this particular situation required extra trust because it's such a loaded topic, something I had never really explored before, much less in public. So there's all these reasons why extra trust was needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why we had to be ready to scrap the whole thing as far as the recording and all of that. That all had to be, we had to be very detached from any agendas regarding any of that, Yeah. And I was really sort of monitoring that with my parts. And because you had so much self-energy kind of going into this, it's really clear that you had done some work with your parts. This wasn't just your first, experience of your parts, but that you had good relationship with them. Because you had that going in, it just made it so much easier to be able to be together in that.
Yeah. So maybe a little background. I had read some books on IFS. I had received some IFS counseling, and I was also deep into healing from sexual addiction. So all of that is part of this. Somebody who's just randomly, or not randomly, but a little bit earlier in their process, maybe would not intuitively know that, for example, in dealing with the makeup artist, okay, this is a part of me. It blessed me. I need to
Right.
acknowledge that and honor that while also letting it go,
So what we're trying to say is, don't expect that your intake interviews are going to look just like this when you're working with a brand new client, for example. Yeah. And then parts, just an invitation for parts, and we're going to get into this a lot more in the next segment, but for parts to be seen, heard, and understood. We're setting the stage for parts to be seen, heard, and understood. That's the second of Brown and Elliott's primary conditions for secure attachment. And so, should we just open it up for a little bit of, kind of discussion here, or some questions, Drew? Does that sound good for you? Yeah. Okay. Great. If anybody would like to raise an electronic hand or an actual hand, we can certainly open a bit of a conversation if there's something that y'all would like to bring up. So, or we can put a question in the chat too if there's something that folks would like to know from there. Beautiful comment from Catherine. Drew, you are so brave to do this. Really generous. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, great. And let's see. Brittany, yes. Could you let us know?
Yeah. Yes, I echo what Catherine just said. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and allowing us to be able to learn from you. Just wondering, as we continue to watch this tonight and checking ourselves too, and I hope I'm understanding correctly, but how would I kind of deal with my parts as I'm trying to learn from you, Dr. Malinovsky, and also try to understand how do you recommend, because there's this like dynamic, right, of me wanting to learn, but then not getting too much in my own head, right? So that makes sense.
I think the most important thing, if you can do it, is to just spend some time with your parts, and just kind of get to know your own parts. Because when we're in an environment like this, where like there's really deep work going on, it provides a kind of window or a portal sometimes into our own system. Sometimes our protectors can relax a little bit, or other times parts that were resonating with what was going on in the demo might be able to be a little more apparent. And so it's an opportunity then to just kind of be able to notice them and to connect with them, to listen to them. maybe write down what you're learning. So that's what I would say about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that helpful? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
You have lots of options. You have lots of options to be able to what am I trying to say here? To experience it. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's go ahead and, unless there's something else, we'll go ahead and move on, because that would leave us a little more time for some of the later parts of it when we've experienced a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and play some more. And what we'll do is we're going to go ahead for about another 21 minutes and see this next part where we really are getting in touch with more parts. And there's a quote from Ashley Ford, her book, Somebody's Daughter, a memoir, where one of the characters says, "I wanted to be seen, but I didn't want to be watched." I wanted to be seen, but I didn't want to be watched. And so there's this really gentle way that Drew was able to really be with his parts. Okay, so I'm just going to invite you, Drew, just to notice we got calm, we got compassion. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay.
I wouldn't say we have complete calm.
Okay. All right.
Notice myself shaking a little bit.
Okay. Can we just check in with the shaking?
Yeah.
I'm just really kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
Again, we're not rushing anything, in this kind of work. It's so important to build the trust. If we build trust with one part, and if that's all that happens in this exercise, we have made huge progress.
Yeah.
Right. So no part left behind. I'm curious about the shaking. I invite you into that curiosity too.
Yeah. This part of me that's shaking was hurt, was injured, and never processed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Never dealt with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never had anyone even know this story.
Right. So there's a whole nother story here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I'm curious if you can connect with that part and just see what that part needs, is if it's connected to what we're doing now, if we need to change direction, if that's what's best, if there's some way that part would like to work with that in another context. I mean, we're open to a lot of different ideas here.
Yeah.
About what would be best. And I don't know what that is, but I know that we can find it.
This part is telling me I want to be seen. I want to be known. It's time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And other parts are good with the idea of, making a little change in direction here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure that parts can speak up if they feel the need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in third grade, living in Mexico City, on weekdays after school, my sister and I used to ride our bikes around the little cul-de-sac where we lived, just me and her. And I would create a little route around the sidewalk and the manholes and go around and around. I used to call it Drew's Fun Ride. And then my little sister created her own, and she called it Lauren's Funny Fun Ride. and I said, "Hey, you're copying me." And we would go around and around in the cul-de-sac until one day I fell on my bike and I face planted in the asphalt. And I have this one little flash of memory of standing up, not knowing what's happening, but my mouth is bleeding. And
and my mother is terrified, wondering what's happening to my brand new adult teeth. And the next thing I remember, I'm in a hospital room or in an emergency room or something. I'm lying on the bed. A doctor or a dentist is looking into my mouth, inspecting it. And I remember my mom saying, like, how bad is it? What does he need? And he said, well, he's probably going to need headgear or some corrective work done. But the headgear stands out to me. I didn't know what that was. It was frightening. It was confusing. It was terrifying. I was like, what is that? I remember eventually finding out that it's when braces are coupled with a wire that goes around your head, and it looks really awkward and inconvenient and unattractive. And I remember just dreading that one day I would have to wear one of those things every day. And that's the story that this part wanted me to share.
Yeah. And does that part recognize, does it sense that you've heard what it needs you to hear? Or is there something behind it? And you don't have to share it with us. You don't have to share it with me. But if there's something about that, about the meaning, that just seems like...
There was also a shame.
Yeah.
A really deep shame that came with the fear.
Yeah.
And being singled out as the only kid with headgear. Remember, one of my deepest wishes was to have my first kiss. Thinking, who's going to kiss the boy with headgear?
Mm-hmm.
All of these worst case scenarios were going through my head as an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are you feeling the shame in your body? Just curious, Drew.
I feel it in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I have this image of a skull and crossbones.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's death associated with this shame.
Yeah. And does this part carry the shame, the one that we've connected with here, or is it protecting against the shame? Can you tell me a little more about the relationship?
I'm not sure.
All right, that's okay. It's more something to ask the part. Just see if the part would be willing. And again, not necessarily for us to know. We can, choose.
That's interesting. I'm asking the part, are you protecting anyone? And I'm getting a message again that this is not the first time my mouth has been harmed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Even as a 5-year-old, I was forced to kiss the older women in my family.
Mm-hmm.
So much shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, Drew, if you can hold that shame and experience it, but not be overwhelmed. Just let me know if.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Right.
close to crying.
Yeah. And if you cry, we'll work with that too. But I'm going to ask that part not to overwhelm you with the shame. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
turning the shame down to like 50%.
Yeah. Is that okay? Is that a good level?
Yeah.
And can the part still see you?
Mhm.
Just ask. Can you see the
Mhm.
part? Yeah.
Mhm.
Then you can be in relationship.
Mhm.
Then you can be in relationship. Because if it gets too close and it floods and takes you over, then we lose the relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a 5-year-old little Drew with
Yeah.
a bright pink lipstick mark on his cheek.
Yep. Because that's how it rolls, didn't it, back then? Yeah.
Another feeling coming up of anger, being so protective.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense for you that a part might be angry.
Mm-hmm.
Part might want to protect here or something. Yeah. Let's see if that part can give you some space, though, just to see if we can. If the part needs to know, you can let them know that it's 2022. We're not back then. Okay.
It's over now.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. We're working with the memory here.
Yeah. Yeah. Got some space.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. A lot of appreciation for that part that holds the anger for you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of gratitude for all that's done to protect you and for the space that it's given you now. And I'm wondering if the part can tell you, share with you what it needs you to know about the story of being kissed in that way, being invaded in a sense in that way by these women relatives.
Felt disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I felt trapped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yet obligated. This is what a good boy does. I was the only boy. On my dad's side of the family, the only grandson.
Mm-hmm.
And they felt they had the right
Mm-hmm.
to my face, to my mouth, even when I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense to me.
Now the sexual part is wanting to speak.
Okay. And let's just slow it down a little bit here and see if this is a good place for that part, that's born the kisses, if it's in a good place for us to switch for a little bit, or if it needs something before that.
Yeah. Yeah, it needs a little more time.
Okay. Let's check back with the part that you were going to work with originally, the sexual part, to see if that's okay, if we can have a little time.
Yep.
Right? We can work together here. Okay. Great.
Yes.
A lot of collaboration and cooperation here among your parts. It's really beautiful, Drew. So.
Thank you. So this little boy, he wants me to know that he really likes being kissed by his dad on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so different.
Mm-hmm.
It feels safe. Affectionate. Mutual. And at times he likes it with his mom when his mom is not wearing makeup. Yeah. And he's not being marked by it.
Yeah. Not having the other leave a mark.
That's big.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling that.
And it's as if the lipstick mark is slowly dissolving.
Yeah. They don't have a claim on you.
Yeah. They don't have a claim on you. Your body belongs to you.
Yes.
He's coming in for a big hug.
All right. All right.
I was about to say I'm giving him a big virtual hug, but this is a physical, embodied hug right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let him, this is a moment we don't want to rush through. Okay, let him take in this boy, this part of you has waited a long time to be able to connect with you. So we really want him to have the time to take this in.
You are a beautiful boy. Sometimes there's a cost. It has been used against you, and you have turned against your own beauty. It has not been safe for you to like yourself. But you're always trying. You can stop trying. It's okay. I like you just the way you are. And I don't need you. I don't need to use you. It's a good thing for you to have boundaries. He's just telling me thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He likes having boundaries, but sometimes he feels guilty for having boundaries.
Well, let him know that you can help him navigate those boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, that he doesn't have to figure all that out on his own. That's too much for a little part to have to manage on his own.
Yeah. Yeah, that stands out to me. He shouldn't have had to create his own boundaries. He's 5 years old.
No, he's a hero for having stepped in to take it, you know, to keep it from overwhelming your whole system. He's the one that stepped into the breach and stepped up to handle the intensity of all of this so that you could continue to function in the world, so that other parts were shielded from the intensity of the experiences and the violation.
Yeah. This part of me has the feeling of either no boundaries or extreme boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, 5 years old, all or nothing, pretty common.
Yeah.
Pretty human, gotta say. Yeah.
And sometimes that 5-year-old is taking over the 30-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
times when I don't have enough boundaries, and then I just shut down at one point or another, completely cut off sometimes.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
I want to honor that little boy. I'm here to help you.
Does he have a favorite color?
Blue.
And if you ever write in your parts journal and he wants to say something, could you write it in blue?
Yeah. Okay.
If he would like that? If that he knew that blue was his voice?
Mm.
I don't know if he'd like that, but
Yeah. He wants me to write it with his left hand so that it will look like a little kid writing it.
All right. All right. Beautiful. Is this a settled place for him to be right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing him together with the 8-year-old.
Okay.
They've got their arms around each other.
Okay.
Seeing the connection there.
Well, parts can love each other if they are in right relationship with the self.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to take a little pause there to just be able to come back together and to be present with each other. And I'm curious, like, about just kind of checking in with your own parts to see what they were experiencing. And we have a little space here, a little bit of silence, a little bit of connection for you to be able to just, wrap up any work that you've been doing with your own parts for this piece of it. There are a few things that I really wanted to kind of bring out. The importance of Drew really being with his parts in a loving way. His parts being seen, heard, understood by his innermost self was so, so important. The importance of working really gently with shame. Shame is such a common underlying burden, such a very powerful one. We talked about the importance of boundaries, how difficult those can be to navigate when parts are really young. We had some themes about titrating the intensity of the emotional experience, contracting with parts to not overwhelm, so that we can maintain that sense of safety, because we always want to bear in mind that sense of safety. And then this idea of appreciating parts for the good that they're trying to bring us, and to have this sort of experience of cooperation and collaboration among parts working collaboratively, cooperatively, under the leadership and guidance of the innermost self. Those were sort of really main themes that just wanted to kind of bring out. And my own experience of this when we were doing it is to really to just really be with Drew as he was with himself, to be a support for Drew's innermost self, as he connects with his parts, as he's creating a sense of safety for them, as he's being that secure attachment figure for them, as he is seeing them, hearing them, knowing them, understanding them, as he's reaching out to them in love. So I'm really just there to support Drew doing his work. I've got to really be in a secondary role in this kind of work, because I'm not seeking to be the internal attachment figure for Drew's parts primarily. He doesn't need that. His parts are on an adventure to discover who his innermost self is. And his innermost self is on an adventure to discover who his parts are, in a really deep way. So there's a lot of, for me in this, how can I be small? How can I get out of the way of that really happening? So that was my monologue. It was longer than I had intended it to be. Drew, I just really on my heart to hear whatever, you might feel like needs to be said, what your parts would like you to speak for them, or what's coming on your heart. So.
I'm in awe of how you guided me through that, especially when shame was really getting intense. You brought me back to regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also amazing because in our other conversations, you mentioned that you had some experiences that got triggered.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm having emotions going on like with some intensity as this. I can feel it in the second round as we watch this again, just the sense of awe, and a sense of beauty and a sense of tenderness for your parts and for my parts that are resonating. Because there are parts of me, like my little one, I call this part of me my little one, who bears shame in my system, resonating, with the counterpart, that was carrying the shame for you, and so, that part was just close to my heart and close by me. And it's like, yep, we remember, we know something about what that's like, even though my situation was different, didn't have the exact same kinds of, setups or experiences you did. There's a lot of commonality. And so I'm listening to my parts that are in relationship with me, my innermost self. And they're also letting me know, hey, this is what might be going on, in this moment. And so sometimes in IFS circles, there can be this sort of impression, I think, that it's just the innermost self. It's just the self that does the therapy. And we really should have our parts sort of all off in some little daycare, there's some sort of internal daycare so that they're not going to get in the way and cause trouble. But as your parts are more and more in this right relationship with self, as there's more integration, those parts are so able to help in the therapeutic process, because they can share what they know from their experience, and they can share this way of kind of reaching across the space to the other. And so I don't think that the therapy is just done by the innermost self. I think it's the whole of the therapist is ideal, if parts can bear that. So the first thing is to be unblended as a therapist. This is in the natural realm, be unblended. And the second thing is the more unburdened you can be, the more parts are then able to participate in a really positive way. Drew, you had something you want to say? We'll get to you, Barbara. I'm glad. I love the enthusiasm. We'll get there. But I wanted to make sure that Drew had some time to
Yeah. There's a part of me that wants to bring up something specific that you shared from your story.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I love it.
That's okay?
Yep. Do it.
All right. So you had headgear.
Yeah, I had headgear. Absolutely. Absolutely had headgear, and wore it in 9th grade. And it was terrible. It was terrible. And I actually had a senior, when I was in my freshman year, I had a senior grab onto my headgear, pull it out of the sockets and release it, So yeah, there was some hazing at my high school like that. So yeah, parts of me that dealt with that shame, that dealt with the violation, in the mouth, so my parts are connecting on this sort of stuff, allowing me to be really more connected in a way to you, Drew, to your parts, So yeah. And if that were not resolved in my system, like if that particular conflict, if I hadn't worked through that, if that was still an unresolved trauma, then I wouldn't be able to be with you in that way, which is why it's so critical for therapists to do their own internal work, to really connect with your parts. It's really important for your own system, but it's especially important for therapists because of, how helpful it is, how good it is if we can be more available and present without having to withdraw or having to defend or having to protect or having to silence or numb or banish parts, because it's activating stuff that's unresolved for us. I really do believe that when therapists hit impasses where they get agitated or they lose a sense of peace because of something that's going on in the therapeutic relationship with the client, it's not because of the client's actions. Client can't steal your peace. The client is tapping into something that's unresolved within your system and bringing it to the surface. So there was a special kind of connection there. I'm glad you brought that up, Drew, because you know what? I wasn't even thinking of that in the moment as we were reviewing it. I certainly was originally, but that was slipping my mind. So yeah, we were talking about that in the debrief afterward, I think, right? So yeah. Well, did you have other things, Drew, you'd like to bring up before we?
Looks like we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, let's hit some of these questions. Barbara, let's hear.
Yeah, I wondered if you could comment about when you're working with parts and then and then something gets triggered and one of the parts or a number of the parts don't feel safe. I assume that you stop and then you try and go back to provide some safety for those parts and to kind of dialogue with them. Can you comment about that? Because I'm sure that happens where you're dealing with a number of parts or at least one of the parts, and then somewhere else a part isn't feeling safe now and goes hiding and exiling.
Immediately after college, I worked in daycare. It was a great experience in a number of ways, but I learned so much about managing systems. You have to just sort of, it helps to be unblended, helps to be able to, but I think about I think about Drew's parts as being like a bunch of kids, and we had a 5-year-old, we had an 8-year-old, and I'm trying to, in a sense, see them or sense them within my own system. And that really it helps. Most of this is really intuitive, kind of like, for those of you that are moms or dads, it's kind of like sometimes you just have a sense that something is needed or something would be helpful. And that's where I think I can be most in the flow of therapy. There are protocols within IFS, for example, that can give some guidance on that. But yeah, I'm really sensing, first off, safety. That's the first thing, all right. And sometimes parts don't feel safe and they depart. And I don't feel like I have to necessarily go after them. They might be just regulating their own in their own way at that time. But that's kind of a judgment call. But if we were, like you saw at one point, we were going to switch from one part to another part, and I wanted to just check out if that was okay with the first part. So I'm trying to work collaboratively with the parts. Yeah.
That might address a question that I've had coming up. One of the things that I have a hard time with sometimes when I'm doing parts work, and this might be a little bit of a beginner question, so I'm sorry about that, or excuse me, I guess, in that way. But sometimes it seems like the parts are interrupting each other a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's a little bit like mom and many children, they don't let each other talk. And I have trouble tracking sometimes where we are. And then do I need to go back? And I get a little muddled up. And I was having that experience a little bit while I was watching this session and thinking, how much tracking do I need to be, a little map or something? What would help? So if you could speak into that, that would be helpful.
Sure. So if that happens, the first thing I would say is it's okay. It's okay if that happens. And it's okay if I get a little muddled. There's a lot of times when I'm doing work and I don't know really everything that's going on. There's a lot of times where I don't have a totally clear grip on on where this is going or what's going to be happening, and that's okay. The most important thing I can offer Drew is to be with him. And if you think about what little kids need when they're distressed, they need somebody to be with them. So if I can be with them and Drew can be with them, you see a lot of settling down right there. When little kids have a sense that somebody's trying to do something to them, where there's an agenda, and there's a blend with an active manager part, that's trying to make something happen or trying to stop something from happening or trying to force something, that doesn't help them feel safe. It doesn't help them feel seen and heard and known and understood. That doesn't help them feel reassured or calmed. So a lot of it has to do with the presence, Sarah. Just the presence.
You're saying attend first and organize later.
Yeah.
Okay.
The IFS does have some protocols like the 6 F's and things like that. They're more guidelines. Mm-hmm. It's really more about the being with than the way that I think about it.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah. And Drew, we had a question in the chat. Did you have any idea where this was going to go, or was this all a surprise to you?
I knew that it was connected to the story of an accident on my bike. And that was a recent discovery for me, but I hadn't explored it at all. So I came into this thinking, right, I know that there's a story and it has to do with this, but I'm not going to try to work through it. I'm going to wait till Peter and I do this session and let him guide me through it. I didn't know where it would go other than that. But it started when I was reading more about how sexual fantasies and unwanted fetishes develop. And one of the things that struck me in what I was reading was it said that oftentimes it happens for children with physical illnesses or like injuries. And I was like, have I had any injuries? Oh, there was that one time. And that's what started this whole thing. Not that this is some kind of formula,
right?
Because it's not. It's not like there's a cause and effect. It's more like many contributing factors, and what mattered was the way that I experienced all of that inside,
mm-hmm.
and that's why this was so helpful. It wasn't like some kind of laboratory dissecting my fantasy. It was like, let's spend some time with it. Instead of dissecting the frog, spending time with the frog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you repeat what you said? You said sexual fantasies or unwanted what were connected to literature regarding injuries?
Fetishes, attractions. So the specific book I was reading was The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge, and he was talking about neuroplasticity. And I think he has a chapter in there about neuroplasticity and sexuality and arousal. And that's what I was reading at the time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we had a comment in the chat from somebody who's really getting into the observer role here. That age 58, I finally came to understand something really important about my 17-year-old part. She carried shame and unworthiness for 41 years. That situation at age 17 was overwhelming, and it wasn't her fault. It was life-changing. So these, going back to what you said at the very beginning of the video, Drew, so much of this is not about sex. It's not about, it's not about what it looks like on the surface.
Yeah. And I would add, it's also not about identity. Sometimes when we're talking about these things, it's like, is this who I am? Well, this is a part of me.
Right. 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 So I have a part that's a sort of timekeeping and kind of wants to head on so that we can kind of, watch more of it and have some time at the end. This next section is going to be about 27 minutes. And, we're going to be looking at, parts also feeling comforted, soothed, and reassured. That's Brown and Elliott's third primary condition for secure attachment. So let's go ahead and.
Can I just say that
even
if we ended it right now, this was already a great experience. Even if nothing else happened after this point in the video.
Yeah, it seems like we're all ready to begin engaging with the 13-year-old or the sexual part.
All right. And I'm just going to invite you to notice anything that comes up in your body as we consider engaging with the 13-year-old. Just to see.
Yeah, I feel something in my gut, my stomach. Feels like a warning sign.
Okay. So if that sensation in your gut could speak, just going to invite you to listen into what it would say. What's the message there?
Saying be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
You can share in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to share everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And frankly, just to be clear, I don't expect to hear everything. I don't expect to know everything. I don't need to know everything. I actually don't need to know most things. It's not important that I know. It's important that you know.
Yes.
The relationship here that we're really developing is between that 13-year-old part and you as Drew, the innermost self.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And, if this does, be published, the audience doesn't need to get in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
No one is entitled to that. No one is entitled to know. So if if it's helpful to share. Okay, if parts are good with that.
Yeah.
If it's helpful to keep it private, keep it private.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can do that.
Yeah. I'm just curious about how that's settling with your body now. What are you noticing about the sensation in your gut?
Before the gut was like a 6. Now it's probably a 3.
Okay. Anything else that would be helpful to the part there that's behind that trailhead?
I'm
Anything
getting
else
curious about it.
Yeah, there's maybe something else. Maybe not. I don't know. Hold it lightly, but yeah, if there's anything else that part needs from you or needs from me, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
The second message is be kind.
Yeah.
Be kind to this tender, very deep sexual arousal that's really close to my heart.
Yeah.
It's not who I am, yet it's a part of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as I talk, I need to not only be cautious, but just be very kind in the way that I represent this part.
Let that part know you're hearing that. And you can also let that part know that I'm hearing it too, and I will be mindful about kindness as well as caution.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Caution and kindness. I can do that.
Yeah. Yes, you can. You have, Drew, you have what you need to be both cautious and kind.
Mm-hmm. Feeling my breath move in and out of that area, my stomach. There's some movement and flexibility. Still some tension.
Mm-hmm.
The tension is not impeding the breath.
Okay. Well, for that part to know, the part that's, generating that stomach sensation, to know that it can get in touch with us. It can let us know if it feels like this is veering off course in some way. Yeah. And that will work slowly and gently in addition to kindly and cautiously.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
When I was 13, I was fascinated with braces and all the different appliances other kids had in their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
And I masturbated specifically to the girls in my class with braces. And I remember in some of the videos or the images that I used to look up, I was especially aroused by headgear.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned up the volume of my arousal so powerfully.
Mm-hmm.
So much energy and charge when I could see both the reality of the headgear and also how it was affecting the person.
Mm-hmm.
And if they felt insecure or ashamed, that was also adding to the sexual feeling of, of wanting to look at it, dwell on it, fixate on it. I remember having this internal conflict of wanting to get braces myself and see what that felt like, and also being repulsed and wanting to never have to go through that. And having that question haunt in my mind, was that doctor right? Was that dentist right?
Mm-hmm.
That was so central in the types of pornography and fantasy that became appealing to me.
Yeah.
People generally know about this fetish, but not the details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that 13-year-old boy makes a whole lot of sense when I see him next to the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to him.
Yeah.
I feel this flood of compassion higher in my chest, more closer to my center. Whew.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever realized that some of my specific sexual struggles actually related to childhood, and what a breakthrough that was for me.
I'm wondering if that 13-year-old can look at you, Drew, if he's not yet looking at you, if that's okay, or if that's too much.
Right now, he's looking off to the side.
Okay. All right. And I'm just going to invite you to sense what he needs right now. How much space, if he needs a word or not a word, and just be with him.
I have a sense that he needs some things from me that are just between him and me.
Absolutely. Just between him and you. Let's give that time. Let him take in whatever he needs to take in from you, and we don't rush it. We have a lot of time here. Kindness and gentleness and caution.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He can see you.
Yeah.
Sense you. Yeah. You can sense him.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
This teenage Drew has been the hardest for me to love.
Mm.
And also the most hardened to receive love. And in this moment, we built a little bit of trust.
Yeah.
I needed to just be with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of incredulous that I'm just here for him. I'm like, yeah, there's no one else here. It's just you and me
Yeah.
in this space. And I'm not here to laugh at him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to lick him.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those things have happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically related to these stories. I don't condemn him for his choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the need to protect what some of his choices were. Or at least the need to be cautious about how much I share.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Does he know that when he's met you before, you've been blended with other parts?
I don't think so.
Yeah, might see how that lands with him if it seems like a good thing to let him know that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times parts are not familiar with the
Mhm.
unblended self.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Sometimes I have been blended with parts.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have related to you as my true self
Mm-hmm.
and with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awesome. And other times, it has not been that way.
I wonder what it would be like, Drew, if it seemed right, if it seemed good, what it would be like for him to receive an apology.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, he would really like that.
And I'm wondering how that is for your system, if that's something that parts, could get on board with, or if there's something that seems wrong about that, or there's any cautions or hesitations about it.
It seems right.
Yeah. Well, in whatever way seems to be good for the both of you and for your whole system, just going to invite that to unfold for you all.
Mm-hmm. 13-year-old Drew. I am sorry for rejecting you, treating you with hostility, being embarrassed. I'm sorry for keeping you all alone where no one could love you for many years. Thank you for giving me this time with you today. Giving me a chance to see you, to appreciate you. You are a part of me, and you belong with me. That word belong feels big.
Big. All right, let's stay with that word. Okay. Let's let that word make the change that's needed right now. Belong.
The phrase keeps repeating in my mind, I belong.
Mm-hmm.
And also Taylor Swift song, You Belong With Me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Feels good to belong.
Yeah. Yeah. He can come home.
He can come home. He was searching for symbols of that belonging every day after school on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of belonging through masturbating to these images.
Yeah.
But it was further exiling him. Taking me away from my life.
Yeah. Let's stay with the good he was seeking for a minute, if we can, in those images, if it's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Just in case there's any parts that are concerned about that, we can tune into them. But if it's okay to just see what good he was seeking for you in these images.
Yeah. Well, part of what I said was arousing was the humiliation of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a symbol of safety in that.
Yeah. Oh, this is someone who gets it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is someone who gets it. Okay.
This is somebody who I can connect with. Because they know what it's like to be humiliated. Especially in their face or their mouth. And this is somebody who's not going to humiliate me.
Yeah.
That resonates very deeply.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always even braces. It could even be glasses. Somebody wearing glasses could have a similar effect.
Yeah, because it's not about the headgear. It's not about the braces. It's about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be okay for him to share whatever he feels he needs to share about that experience with you, Drew?
Mm.
If that would be okay.
That would be okay.
Yeah. Is there any kind of concern about that among other parts if this part were to just...
No, there's a lot of curiosity. Like, I wonder, what's he going to say?
Well, you got a lot of self-energy in your system right now. There's a lot of recollection here, and your parts are doing an amazing job with the space. So a lot of beautiful space here from your parts. They're doing such a wonderful job.
Celebrating all you guys.
Yeah. I'm in awe. This is beautiful. And I'm just gonna see if I'm just curious if that part could share it with you, and if it could be conceivable for that part to let it go. If there would be a way that part would, if that would be something of interest to that part. We don't want to rush things, but the idea that maybe this is a burden.
Yeah, what do you want me to know? 13-year-old Drew.
Yeah, just let him tell you all about it.
He's telling me that it's not all trauma.
Okay.
Yeah. When I started doing all of these things, it was after my family had moved from Toronto in Canada to Dallas, Texas. And he's reminding me that in Toronto, I had some really wonderful first get to know you encounters with girls. 7th grade, felt safe. It was fun. I was able to be myself, and they really wanted to know me, and we had a good first few times getting to know each other, and they all had braces.
Yeah.
And so I remember after moving, many of my first orgasms were thinking about those 3 girls specifically. And so he's reminding me that it wasn't just the trauma behind this arousal, but there was actually something beautiful and good that I lost that he's reconnecting with.
Yeah.
Even after moving, this must have been 2006, we had like Windows Messenger or Instant Messenger. And I used to be sending messages to these girls after school, just trying to hold on to this connection that I couldn't find in our new home, place where I never belonged. And so I'm being reminded of the goodness too.
Yeah.
Not just the pain that's behind it, but the pleasure that was actually healthy and developmentally appropriate. And like, oh my gosh, of course you would have enjoyed that and longed to be back there.
Yeah. And we can separate things out. You know, we don't have to lump it all together and just have it be a great big ball of whatever, you know, it's like, yeah, let's appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot of goodness. There's a lot of beauty in why he is attracted to this specific theme.
Right.
Girls with braces.
There's an association there.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this
image in my head of like a sifting or a separation
Mm-hmm.
that maybe could happen, of separating what I want to keep with what I want to let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm picturing this with my two hands. So I've got in my left hand what I want to keep, my right hand what I want to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Just going with it.
Mm-hmm.
In my left hand, I want to keep beauty.
Yes.
And I want to keep friendship. I want to keep belonging and safety. And I want to keep myself. I want to keep my story. And in my other hand, I want to let go of braces and headgear
Mm-hmm.
in connection with that.
Yeah.
I want to let go of the mental images and fantasies and the self-stimulation that I used to do as a way of settling for a symbol of that, the real thing. I want to let go of the counterfeit.
Mm. Can that 13-year-old see the real in the one hand?
Yeah.
And can the 13-year-old see that all of the goodness from the other hand has been kept? That it's drained?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that
Yeah. Yeah.
all right?
I want to tell him about what we have now that I'm 30.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he might not know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, we're going to take a little break now and just kind of review what that was like. Now I had tears in my eyes again, Drew. Just kind of going through, it really got me in the first moment was the apology, the apology to your 13-year-old part. I mean, that's just still, one of my clients used to say, hits me in the feels. That hits me in the feels. Like that hits me right, where, parts of me have experienced, apology and repair after rupture with, my innermost self and so forth. So there's a lot happening for me in that. And just such a privilege to be with you in that moment. As you are in such a beautiful way reconciling with your own parts and just how your parts are responding to that with such an openness and willingness to reconnect and just felt very privileged to be on that sacred ground, to be a part of that, as you were able to do that work. So yeah, it was just really a gift to me. So that was a big moment. That was a big moment for me. Really powerful. So.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and we've been here for almost 2 hours, so I want to be sensitive to any exhaustion that.
Yeah, people can be taking a breaks too if you need to go or whatever. I thought about scheduling a break, but I thought people can go when they need to, if they need to take a little bio break or something too. How are you doing? Are you holding out? You good with this? Okay, good. Because there's a lot happening just in even reviewing it. So did you have something that you wanted to share, Drew, or something you wanted to ask or?
Well, one thought. Over and over again, I see the power is in the particularity. There's so much power in the particularity of of what I'm sharing. I don't even want to get specific about it now as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to talk about a vague, unwanted sexual behavior or porn in general or fantasy in general, but when we get particular, that's where the power is.
Yeah.
And the particularity also is so connected to this particular life experiences too. It's not just abuse in general or puberty in general. It was very specific stuff.
I'm hearing you say the story has to have details.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what really helped it make sense and resonate. And that's not really specific to me. I would say that's true for all parts.
Yeah. Totally agree. We don't want, because if it's everything's in vague generalities, then how much is one known or seen or heard? There's got to be enough detail. And then I just love the way that you were able to navigate like what could be shared and what couldn't be, because so much of this could be just private. You have the permission for it to just be private, so. Yeah. You want to open it up? Or did you have other things that you...
Looks like there's a question from Marina.
Yeah. So how do you get to have the client connect and express their appreciation, gratitude, or validation and compassion, and to say it out loud to clients that are quiet in general? And as this example, Drew knew what he was doing. So I would say, again, there's a sort of feeling about that. So much of this is really intuitive. And so I'm kind of listening to what my parts are saying, or really more sensing it. I think parts often are really surprised when they are appreciated for their good intentions and for their attempts, even if some of those may be maladaptive or even harmful. But like, when you could express true appreciation for your 13-year-old part and the good that he was trying to hold on to, once we were able to separate out like the good things, that it wasn't all trauma, that there were good things here, man, that's important, Yeah, that's important.
That was a big moment for me too, because sometimes I can think trauma is the root of everything. But this part was reminding me, well, not always. Yeah, and being able to bless some of the positive experiences that were behind this attachment and fantasy as well.
Yeah. And making, recognizing that some of this is counterfeits, like there's an attempt to find something good, but we're being drawn into, we're being lured into, tempted into, impelled towards something that is a dead end. And getting to why, we were able to get back to that original theme of safety. There was this 13-year-old that felt safer connecting with images of women, girls with braces, because they wouldn't hurt you. That's just really an important understanding of this, because I think sometimes in certain Christian circles, there can be some really kind of critical parts that come up that just condemn things as sinful or vicious, or vice. And then there's all this polarization and not an attempt to understand what the good is being sought. And man, if we can be gentler about that, if we can hear the story first, it makes it so much easier to be able to keep the good and let go of the things that are burdensome or harmful or unnecessary, which is different than a lot of us have been raised, different than a lot of us have been taught,
Yeah, it's very different from either kind of an uncritical acceptance of whatever my sexual preferences are. And it's also very different from the condemnation and purity culture that I grew up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it okay that I pipe in right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah, go ahead.
So one thing I was thinking about is, working with Drew, you have a patient who is self-aware, who's done his own work, his verbal IQ is high, and you were still painstakingly slow and patient. And so for me, that was an excellent reminder of the pace of session and staying careful and cautious. So I really appreciated that. I want to go too fast sometimes. I want to go too fast. Yeah.
So we have parts that have good intentions that want to move it along. Sometimes when I watch tape of myself doing demos like this, I think, man, this is really slow, really slow, especially if I'm not reconnecting with what's actually happening. But in trauma circles, there's this old adage, slow is fast, slow is fast. We really need to slow some things down because parts won't necessarily be able to keep up, Those of us that are parents have known what it's like to try to rush kids, to get them ready or whatever. And it gets overwhelming,
That goes backwards. That's right.
Exactly.
I thought that was great. Yeah.
And even despite the perceived slowness, there's like 10 breakthroughs happening, one after the other.
Yeah. And I'm not seeing them all, but I'm trusting that because of the degree of recollection, I'm going to say it this way. You don't hear it this way in IFS circles a lot, but because of the love that I'm seeing Drew's innermost self having for his parts, and because of the love that I'm seeing among his parts, I can just trust that is going to yield all kinds of beautiful things. And what I'm going to do is get out on the edge of that and help hold a frame and let the rest of that roll inside, without trying to insert myself in there. It's taken me a while to have parts settle into enough humility and trust that good process will lead to good outcomes, even if I don't know what they are, that I don't have to make it happen myself. Sort of like St. John the Baptist said, he must increase and I must decrease. I've got to decrease when I'm seeing the innermost self of the one I'm working with rising up. That's a moment to be able in humility to step aside, because no one can love Drew in lieu of Drew. Drew needs to love Drew. And I don't want to get in the way of that when that's really happening.
And I would love to share what some of the results of this experience have been, either now or toward the end.
Oh yeah. Let's, are folks okay with kind of going on now? We good for going on? Because what happens next is the unburdening. So all of this has been really important. If you notice, the unburdening is actually a pretty small part of the session. It's about a quarter of the session, maybe a little bit more, where we actually are doing sort of a formal unburdening. But the importance of what led up to it is what makes the unburdening possible, right? So I think that's why, and this all happened in one session. And by the way, I do want to say, this is like the only time we worked on this deliberately. We had done a couple of podcast episodes before this. So Drew and I had met each other and we had done like a group experiential exercise and things like that. But this is the only time that we had actually done this focused work on this. And so at this point, I'm like saying, man, Drew might be ready to unburden here. I'm going to float an idea, and just see how he responds to that. So we'll watch how that unfolds, and then we'll have a bunch of time at the end. Well, we have a lot of options here, Drew. We could do an unburdening if the part's ready and let go of the other hand. We could go to a retrieval, where we bring him back and do some updating about where he is, where you are in the present day. There's a lot of different ways this can happen. And I really sense that you and he can figure that out. Really have so much trust in your Um, just in where you are right now with him. So
Yeah. I'm going with my gut.
well, just ask him. Ask him.
Okay.
Yeah, just ask
Okay.
him.
What do you want to do?
Yeah. And if he knows, and you might need to do a little explaining if he doesn't know what retrieval or unburdening are, but
Says he wants to do an unburdening with a little bit of preparation about what that involves.
yeah. Yeah. Now, does he want you to help him with that? Is there anything that he wants from me? But it's really about letting go.
Yeah, who do you want to help you with that? He would like all hands on deck.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm right here in support of you, right? You as Drew, you as the innermost self. And just to let him know that unburdening is about letting go of anything that's not life-giving, anything that's not beautiful, anything that's not love, anything that's not true, anything that's not good for him. That's why that separating work he's been doing is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, he would really like to do that.
Yeah. And, there's lots of ways to give that up. I'm wondering if he has a particular way that comes to him. I can offer him some options. You can offer him some options, but is there a way that he would like to send that away?
Well, I don't know exactly where this is coming from, but I have this image in my head right now of a really big, flat, wide desert area where there's lots of open space. And he's got a little box with something in it. And he wants to let it fly away.
All right. Is there anything that seems like would be holding him back from letting him go or letting it all go?
Yeah, there's a little bit of fear.
Yeah, let's pay attention to that. Okay. What might happen if it were all let go?
Yeah. It seems like the fear is coming from that makeup artist from the beginning.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to slow it down. We're going to let the little part know that there's another part, let the 13-year-old part know there's another part that has some concerns, and we're going to just check in with that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to check in with
the
makeup artist.
Yeah.
Tell me about your concerns. So the makeup artist is concerned that if we let go of this, and this burden in the box is shame about how I look.
Okay.
And that's really connected to the story I've told, my teeth, headgear, braces, girls.
Yeah.
That was really a lot of what became sexualized.
Yeah.
And so it's just concerned that if I let go of the shame, then will I just let go of my appearance?
Okay. All right.
That shame motivates me to keep myself in good appearance. So
Absolutely. Does that make sense to you?
yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite you to, in a way that seems right and true and good, just address that with that part.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
to see if there's another way to maintain what needs to be maintained, appearance, health, and so forth, without the shame. Might there be an alternative?
First, there's kind of a slideshow of 8-year-old Drew coming back from that medical room, growing up 9 years old, 10 years old. Some of my adult teeth are growing in crooked, becoming anxious about how I look, seeing other kids get braces, 11 years old, 12 years old, dreading the headgear, yet also wanting to enhance my appearance. Just eventually, and then hitting puberty, all of this happening, and shame driving me, and just feeling the weight and the burden of that shame, how heavy it is.
Yeah.
Even though it is motivating me, it is so heavy to carry around.
Yeah.
It takes so much time. And if I can let it go, it will be so much easier to take care of myself. It'll be so much easier to actually, oh my gosh, so much easier to actually feel okay.
Yeah, let the makeup artist take that in at whatever pace is good, because that's a lot. That's a major shift in how this is gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you be willing to try another way to see what happens? We might let it go and bring it back.
That's a possibility.
We might let it go and find, wow, I feel so much better. Would you be willing to try it? Yeah.
Yeah. There are other ways than shame. There are other ways. So.
Yeah.
And would it be good for that part to join, the makeup artist to join the 13-year-old?
Yeah.
In the desert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the desert.
If the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old, have stakes in this too, we might unburden the whole group of
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. I think that's what we're being pulled toward here, is that there's a lot held here. And for this to be more complete, we may need to check in just to see if there's other attachments, which is why I'm so happy, Drew, that you connected with that in your stomach, because that was such a little clue that we needed.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was going to steamroll it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead, we slowed down.
We want to honor all of our parts.
Welcoming all those lost boys to the desert. 5-year-old, 18-year-old, 13-year-old. Welcoming the makeup artist and the part of my gut who is advocating for caution and kindness.
Yeah.
We're all coming around this box. And we open it.
Yeah.
And it comes out like a
dove, like the Holy Spirit coming out, flying into the air. And it's like this little wounded bird is now spreading its wings. And the shame is turning into compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And then it circles back,
Mm-hmm.
comes back to the group.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than it was,
Mm.
yet also safe.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now there's this huge dove, and each of the little boys is taking a turn riding, going for a flight. They're like, give me a chance. Okay. Now I get to take some time with compassion. Now I get to take some time with compassion.
Yeah. Let him take it all in.
Yeah.
Let take it all in. Whatever is helpful, Drew, with that transformation.
It's as if before they were trying to work on this little wounded shame with like surgery, like trying to fix it, but now it's no longer needing that kind of meticulous, perfectionistic attention. It's just providing strength and support.
Yeah. Wow. I'm curious about the box, Drew. Is there anything else in the box that might need to be let go? And there may not be. There may not be, but I was just curious if.
Yeah. Well, there's a part of me that's reminding me there's always more healing work to be done.
Okay.
There's always more in the box, in a way.
Okay.
Or this is not some kind of arrival. And it's a beautiful adventure. And I feel really content with this chapter today.
Okay. It feels like parts have taken in compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do they need anything else that they want to take in to replace the shame? Is it really the compassion that we're...
And also joy and laughter.
Yeah, let's bring in some joy. Let's bring in some laughter.
Wow, we did it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Jesus is there, celebrating with us.
Yeah.
In my imagination, the desert is beginning to sprout some green.
Blue.
A little bit. Yeah.
You know, and one thing we could do now or you could do later is just to check in with them again if they need any updating, if they need to know that you're now married, you have children of your own, you know, just kind of walk them through. That's something that could happen in another, you know, IFS, you know, part session or something. And yeah. And it's probably too soon for that. They may need to fly for a while, and you know, so, But just so you know that just to bring them up to speed because they may not have any idea. You know, it's the nature of those internal disconnects. So but now that integration's happened, and there's time to be able to consolidate all of that. I'm going to invite you to to really work with these parts and to connect with them, ideally twice a day, even if it's brief, over the next month. Because it usually takes about 21 to 28 days to really solidify those new neural pathways that have opened up. There's an embodied aspect of this in the brain, just to really keep those. So just, it doesn't have to necessarily be long, but just to really be with those parts again, help them to remember what happened, reconnect with them, help them get used to this, because what fires together wires together, and so be a big help to them. So does that feel like you can do that?
It feels a little daunting.
Okay.
I believe I can incorporate that into my existing morning routine.
Okay.
Got to find a blue pen.
Yeah, definitely. And there may be other colors for other. That's what I do. I mean, I have 2 parts that use blue, both former exiles as well. So, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, just to be able to do that, and you're welcome to get in touch with me too. If this is,
thank you.
I mean, obviously none of this was therapy. We're doing a demo, but yeah, I definitely have been really moved by the beauty of your parts, by the way they collaborated, by the degree of self-energy. Drew, it was really amazing to be with you. It was an honor to be invited into your space, into the sacred ground of your parts and kind of the love and the connection. So a lot of gratitude from my parts and from myself to you for that.
Thank you, Peter. What a wild ride. Yeah. And thank you so much for offering your gifts and skills and yourself, so that not only I can have more healing, but all the men who witness this, if we decide to publish it, will also benefit. And
yeah. Well, and again, sometimes parts see what other parts are doing, I mean, it's like, whoa, because it can open up the imagination, and that's a really powerful thing. So the most important aspect of this is that you've connected with your own parts and you've loved them. The rest of it's gravy, the rest of it.
I love that.
But a gift, so no pressure about any of that. Certainly not from my end. So,
well, again, thank you so much. Praise God for integration.
Yes.
Praise God for healing, and for how even our sexual parts can be loved, cherished, affirmed, empowered. That we can separate out what's real from the counterfeit. That we can let go of any burdens we've attached to our sexuality, and we can invite the Holy Spirit into this process.
Yeah, seek and ye shall find. But so much of that does happen, through the self, because our Lord, the Holy Spirit, God the Father, they don't want to invade us, right? So when that comes through the self, it can be so much easier for parts to take in, right? And then when there's a secure attachment between the parts and you as Drew, it becomes easier to introduce them to God.
Yeah.
The 3-person site.
That's so true.
I really feel that, because all love ultimately comes from God, right? Whether it comes through the self or through another person or directly from the Holy Spirit or whatever, it all comes from God. So, but yeah, St. Paul says sometimes these little parts need milk. Sometimes they need it sort of translated through the self. And then it makes it easier to become more directly in contact with God.
So, which is what we talked about at the very beginning, experiencing rather than just thinking.
Thinking.
You know?
And the parts that do that too are trying to help, right? Because
Yeah.
so often they're terrified of God, and they're trying to get us in a position to be acceptable, But it's really hard to devote our lives to a God who merely tolerates us,
Yes.
But a God who loves us, where we are His beloved children. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good to write a new chapter of that story today. And that's why I always remind you guys, you are God's beloved son. In you, He is well pleased.
Well, so much happened in there, but I am also really mindful of time. We've got, right around 15 minutes left. Drew, I'm just gonna offer it to you. Take it where you will. I know you've got something to share with us, or at least I sense that. So
Thanks, Peter. I will say that I did not complete the 30 or 40 days of checking in twice a day with my parts. Looking back, I was like, wow, that's a big commitment. I did check in a few times, and I'll share one of those check-ins. It was like writing with a blue marker or something. I think you had suggested that. So I wrote with my non-dominant hand, and my part was saying, love me. And it was like, okay, you don't let it stop with the session. Like, continue to give that compassion to yourself. And then I checked in again, and it put the word you in front. So it was like, you love me. I was like, oh, building that internal trust of like, oh, you really love me. I'm not all like I was before. So, without being too dramatic, I did experience a big change in the intensity and the charge of that specific fantasy. Like, it has had a lot less energy behind it. Because the story I tell myself is some of that trauma got released and it got unburdened.
Yeah. I very much had a sense that there was a lot that was able to be let go, and a lot of great things that were able to be kept, so there was that sifting.
Yeah. In trying to describe the difference, my best way to describe it is the headgear braces thing feels less magical and more manageable. It got normalized. It got welcomed in. It's like, okay, there's some peace instead of the mix of fear and arousal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thank you so much for facilitating that.
Oh, wow. It's just a pleasure, just an honor to be able to journey with you on that, to accompany. Really, I really see that as my role was to accompany you, and to the degree that it can be possible to accompany all of you, the parts, as well as the innermost self. And to be able to accept, what parts are able, willing to tolerate. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless. I don't really know quite what to say. I had some notes made out, but they don't seem very important right now. So, the 21 days, we have a question from Brittany about the 21 days. So 21 to 28 days, that there's some evidence from neurology, neurophysiology about the establishment of the actual embodied neural pathways, the new the new connections in the brain. Typically what I'd recommend is 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, 3 to 5 minutes in the evening minimum to just sort of check in with those parts. If you can do that, it's great. But even as Drew, you were saying, it doesn't have to be done perfectly. Few things in this area are done perfectly. There still can be great benefit that comes from it.
I would love to hear any other questions.
So modes, I'm a big fan of journaling, and I journal every day, multiple times a day in different colors. So I have 11 different pencils. I'm a little geeked out on this. I have 11 different colors of pencils. They all are erasable, colored pencils that are erasable, so that if I want to, if a part wants to like correct how it's gotten written down, it can do that. So I know what voice is being heard or being spoken for. I also like parts mapping, which is drawing out the parts and the relationships among the parts. And that doesn't have to be artistically impressive. I tend to draw parts as circles, squares, and triangles when I draw them, so, but the important thing in all of this is to be with your parts, to be in, and to be that presence. And then the doing flows from the being. And now sometimes I've had clients that say, "Oh, you're talking like Yoda." That's that Yoda speak you get into. But I mean, I really do think that it's like being a mother, right? Would you rather have a mother who is a good mother and who's doing flows from that being, sort of flows from her being a good mother? Or would you rather have somebody who's acting in the role of a mother, who is doing what a good mother would do? So that's why I emphasize so much the human formation of the Christian therapist. This isn't book learning primarily. It's not your professional development. It's not how many IFS trainings you've had. It's not how many PESI courses you've taken, how many books you've read. It's really about like, are you integrated? Are you in a great place to be able to be with yourself so that you can be with the other in a way that's wholesome and good? Can't teach that in graduate school. So that's why, like in the interior therapist community that I run, we're really all about the human formation. The Resilient Catholics community that I lead, it's all about the human formation. I think it's really what we need in order to be able to be with.
Yeah, even some of these great recommendations and plans and practices can be motivated by fear or shame, thus self-defeating or unproductive.
Yeah, I think so many therapists, have unresolved shame. We are looking outside of ourselves. There's ways that we want our clients to change so that we can feel better about ourselves as therapists. And so I think we really, really need to be careful about that, because otherwise we're imposing an additional weight or burden on our clients. And we're not doing that intentionally. And parts are trying to help us, but it's really hard to go on diplomatic missions or diplomatic visits to other people's castles if a civil war is going on within your own castle. But the beautiful thing is that if we as therapists can unburden, if we can even unblend, if we can just unblend, we can be so much more available to our clients. I've known clinicians, I've seen clinicians who are really struggling with some pretty heavy duty, unresolved trauma, some fairly symptomatic presentations. But when they unblended, when their parts were willing to give their innermost self space, boy, they could do some really beautiful work with their clients. So to me, that's really hopeful. We don't have to be anything like perfect. This is really robust. It's very approximate. I don't feel like, I don't feel like the work we did, Drew, was like precision, laser precise types of, that's not a measure that we would use for something like that. So
Can I ask you a question, Drew?
Yeah.
When you were speaking to shame being a motivator, that really resonated with some of my parts and stuff that I've done work around and continue to do work around. So I'm curious, letting that go, you were concerned about, well, am I going to let myself go then? What's that been like, that part of shame as a motivator and how it affected all of your parts?
Well, as it turns out, compassion has provided motivation too. Which could be surprising, but I find that affirmation and compassion seems to actually give me more motivation than shame did.
That's awesome. Lovely. Thanks.
Welcome.
Just so much gratitude to you, Drew, for multiple things. First of all, for just being willing to do the work inside, and then to share your stories, to share your parts, and to share your love for your parts with us. There's so much good that's going to redound from that in my life. I know it already has so much appreciation, regardless of where this goes from here. So
Thanks,
yeah,
Peter.
just a lot of beauty in that. And I'm so grateful for you.
I mean, for me, this was primarily just about receiving.
But when you love you,
yeah,
there's all kinds of collateral goodness that happens, all kinds of collateral healing that happens that you may not even be aware of, that we're not aware of. So there's this harmony about what's good and these ripple effects that carry on, because we all are in the mystical body of Christ. We're all connected in the mystical body of Christ. We're all one body in Christ, with Christ as our head. So yeah, what we do in our own systems has an impact on everybody else. So I'm grateful.
Thankful for everybody being present. I mean, if you had to leave, that would have been okay, but you stayed, and that just tells me that you were with me too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, for 2.5 hours. For 2.5
That's a long time. Goodness.
All right. Well,
Thank you both so much for your time tonight. Much appreciated. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
now this episode 114 of the Interior Integration for Catholics podcast, this episode might have brought up a lot more questions for you about unburdening. Maybe more questions than answers. So I have an invitation for you. Join us live for our next episode 115, on Friday, June 16th, from 7 o'clock to 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. In episode 115, on June 16th, Resilient Catholics Community lead navigator Marion Moreland and I will answer your questions. Any questions from our live audience about unburdenings informed by internal family systems. You can register to join us for free on our website, soulsandhearts.com/IIC. There'll be a free link on that landing page. And you can also email me questions beforehand at crisis@soulsandhearts.com. Now, big news, it's happening. The Resilient Catholics community is now open for new applicants. We open twice a year in June and December. I founded the Resilient Catholics community, the RCC, for Catholics who are committed to going to the deepest natural levels within themselves to work through unmet attachment needs, unmet integrity needs, to work through their human formation issues. And why? So that we can have that interior integration, so that we can have that inner unity to be able to enter into deep, loving unions with our neighbor and with God. The RCC provides a very structured approach to help you with your human formation. It's a year-long program, 44 weekly lessons spread out over the course of a year, with the support of other Catholics on a pilgrimage together to greater human formation. So many of our RCC members have experienced great growth, great healing. The RCC is not about therapy. We don't provide therapy in the RCC, but it's a great adjunct to other work that you may be doing with a therapist. And so many of our RCC members have experienced spontaneous unburdenings. We don't do formal unburdening protocols in the RCC. There are a lot of reasons for that, but so many people have experienced so much relief from all kinds of burdens in the RCC. If you want to take the next step, if the way that we understand human formation in the Interior Integration for Catholics podcast makes sense to you, learn about the RCC and sign up, register. soulsandhearts.com/RCC, little r, little c. I hope to see you in the RCC.